According to a former United States Defense Secretary, the world has exhausted all options of dealing with North Korea. William Cohen said the situation in the country cannot be resolved until there's a change in the regime's direction or a change in the regime. Geopolitical tensions have heightened in recent weeks after North Korea launched ballistic missiles into the Sea of Japan. The country also tested a new type of high-thrust rocket engine. The potential deployment of a U.S. anti-missile system in South Korea also saw China retaliating against Seoul.
David Rockefeller, the famed banker and philanthropist, died Monday at age 101, according to a spokesperson for the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. Rockefeller had served as chairman of what is now J.P. Morgan Chase, but he was also born into great wealth as a grandson of John D. Rockefeller, who founded the Standard Oil Empire and was America's first billionaire. According to Forbes, David Rockefeller was worth $3.3 billion at the time of his death, making him the world's oldest billionaire.
CBS has reported that a Santa Monica-based artist says she's received death threats after creating an anti-Trump billboard that's gone up in Arizona. Karen Florido told CBS Los Angeles that she was commissioned by a company for the local arts in Phoenix to create the billboard. Since the Trump billboard went up on Friday, the 25-year-old artist said she has received both positive and negative feedback. She said tons and tons of positive feedback. People either love it or they hate it. However, Florido continues, there have been a couple of people who have said they will come and get me, or that I should be sleeping with a gun underneath my pillow.
More than 800 people, both people who were injured on 9/11 and family members of those who were killed, filed a lawsuit against the country of Saudi Arabia on Monday. The lawsuit, brought in the federal court that covers Lower Manhattan, is years in the making. It took an act of Congress, the Justice Against Sponsors of Terrorism Act, to allow private citizens to sue a foreign government for its alleged involvement in terrorism. Saudi Arabia was duplicitous, the suit said.
An Alabama megachurch is reportedly in pursuit of establishing its own police department, and a bill that could potentially greenlight the likeliness of making their dreams a reality is making its way through the state Senate. The 4,100-member Briarwood Presbyterian Church, located in suburban Birmingham, contends to be in need of its own police force, stating that it would be necessary to counter any potential threats of safety, as the property also harbors a primary school and theological seminary with 2,000 students and teachers.
According to analysts, while North Korea has likely mastered the technology to power the different stages of an intercontinental ballistic missile, it remains unlikely any of their rockets would be able to hit the mainland United States. On Sunday, North Korean state media announced its latest rocket engine test, saying the advancement would help North Korea achieve world-class satellite launch capability. Kim Dong-yub of the Institute for Far Eastern Studies in Seoul told Reuters this was a comprehensive test for the first stage rocket of an ICBM, and that is why it was dangerous. It appears that North Korea has worked out much of its development of the first stage rocket booster. However, Kim said the North had still not mastered the atmospheric re-entry technology needed for an ICBM, indicating more work needs to be done before the country is capable of hitting the United States.
The number of infants born with HIV in the United States has dropped dramatically over the past 2 decades. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention says there were 69 cases of HIV-infected infants in 2013, compared with 216 cases in 2002. Factors tied to mother-to-child transmission of HIV include late HIV diagnosis of mothers and a lack of antiretroviral and preventative treatment. Early diagnosis of HIV in pregnancy, use of HIV-fighting medications by the mother, and treatment of the infant with anti-HIV meds for 6 weeks after birth are key to stopping mother-to-child spread of the virus. These methods are incredibly effective in decreasing mother-to-child transmission. Many patients who are born with HIV are taking their medications and are thriving. The children have grown up over the past 2 to 3 decades, and in turn are having their own children now, all of whom are not infected with HIV because of the tools currently being used.
In China, certain parks have installed facial recognition devices in public restrooms to make sure bathroom users are mindful about their toilet paper use. The bathroom user has to stand in front of the device before using the bathroom in order to receive their 24 inches of toilet paper each bathroom user is rationed. The facial recognition device will also recognize a person's face long enough to not allow them to use the bathroom again until 9 minutes have passed.
Climate change is making Americans sick. That's according to a new group called the Medical Society Consortium on Climate and Health, which released a report on March 15th on how climate change is affecting public health. The report classifies 3 different ways climate change is affecting public health. First, it causes direct harm like injuries and death from increasingly intense weather patterns. That includes deadly storms, dangerous heat waves, and air pollution. The report also says climate change is spreading disease by contaminating water sources and creating favorable conditions for disease-carrying insects. This in turn increases cases of things like Lyme disease and West Nile virus. Finally, the report claims climate change is affecting Americans' mental health, causing anxiety and depression. The report will be distributed to Congress, and the Huffington Post says the group plans on lobbying for environmentally friendly initiatives. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Neela Uni. Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte said he can't stop China from building structures on the disputed Scarborough Shoal in the South China Sea. The president made the statement at a press conference March 19th. This comes just a few days after Chinese officials announced they will soon start construction there on an environmental monitoring station. Duterte also said declaring war on China was not an option and would leave the Philippines a, quote, destroyed nation. The Scarborough Shoal has long been a source of controversy in the South China Sea, with both countries claiming sovereignty over it. China blocked access to Filipino fishermen after seizing the shoal in 2012. The move prompted Manila to take the dispute to a United Nations tribunal where the Philippines' territorial claims were upheld. Duterte said he won't invoke the arbitral ruling now, but does plan to use it in the future to, quote, tinker with the entitlements. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Neela Uni.
The Associated Press reports that LGBT advocates are questioning the Trump administration's quiet deletion of questions on sexuality from 2 federal surveys, the withdrawal of another planned survey evaluating the effectiveness of a homelessness project for LGBT. The moves have alarmed people who worry that this may point to a manipulation of government data collection against their cause. Laura Durso, vice president of the LGBT Research and Communications Project, said, "In an age when LGBT rights are such a part of the national discussion, the Trump administration is choosing to not only ignore us, but erase us from the discussion."
Early on Monday, intense clashes took place in Damascus as the army counterattacked rebels who had advanced on the northeast side of the Syrian capital on Sunday. According to a Syrian military source, the army had managed to recapture all the positions lost in Sunday's attack. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, a British-based war monitor, said heavy fighting continued around the Jobar and Al-Kabun regions in the northeast of the city. Recent fighting has focused on the areas around Kabun and Barza, which the army has isolated from the rest of the main rebel enclave of eastern Ghouta and the eastern districts of Damascus. Elle.com has reported that giving women birth control saves money. A study from Child Trends commissioned by the Planned Parenthood Action Fund found that if everyone who didn't want to get pregnant had access to effective birth control, there would be fewer abortions and unintended births. Abortion and hospital stays tend to cost money. Access to birth control would mean saving money. The study finds that substantial reductions in unintended pregnancy would translate to $12 billion in public health care cost savings annually, reducing the public costs of unintended pregnancy by half.
Since January 1st, 2017, there have been 33 incidents targeting mosques in the U.S. A mosque at Ypsilanti, Michigan was burned to the ground this month. Another in Roseville, California, is spray-painted with anti-Muslim epithets. Yet another in Tucson, Arizona, is broken into and its copies of the Quran ripped up. The incidents, tallied by the Council on American Islamic Relations, span 19 states from Florida to Hawaii. By comparison, during the same time period in 2016, CARE counted just 17 incidents.
A federal judge in Hawaii has refused to narrow his injunction that put a temporary halt on President Donald Trump's revised travel ban. Last week, U.S. District Judge Derek Watson issued a temporary restraining order on Trump's revised travel order that prevents nationals from 6 majority Muslim countries from entering the U.S. and suspends the United States' refugee program. The Department of Justice subsequently filed a motion to restrict the restraining order, saying that Watson's ruling was based on the argument that the ban appears to unconstitutionally target Muslims. The DOJ questioned whether the temporary restraining order should just be limited to the ban on travel from the 6 countries into the U.S. and not to the temporary refugee ban. Watson said on March 19th, however, that there was nothing unclear about his order against the ban and that his ruling remains unchanged. For Newsbeat Social from Washington, D.C., I'm Caitlin Mangum.
The Kurdish paramilitary in Syria is seeking to expand the size of its forces by 2/3. The YPG's plan aims to bolster troop figures from 60,000 to 100,000 by the end of the year. According to an Army spokesman, the group aspires to exceed 100,000 troops by the second half of 2017. Known as the People's Protection Unit, the YPG has played a crucial role in the fight against the Islamic State in Syria, receiving support from the United States. Last week, a YPG commander stated an operation to liberate Raqqa, the Islamic State's de facto capital in Syria, will begin in April. A man who drove to a security checkpoint near the White House in a stolen car was arrested after stating there's a bomb in the trunk. Later told authorities that the object in the trunk was an asteroid and that he communicates telepathically with President Trump. According to a court document filed Monday, 29-year-old Sean Patrick Coogan of Roanoke, Virginia, approached the checkpoint at 10 p.m. Saturday and said he had a meeting with Mr. Trump.
A scandal over tainted meat is striking a blow to Brazil's exports. The government announced Friday, March 17th, that it was investigating evidence that producers paid off inspectors and government officials to allow the processing and export of rotten meat and meat that contained salmonella. China, the largest market for Brazilian beef, has since temporarily banned imports of all meat products from Brazil, while South Korea suspended the sale of chicken from the country. The European Union is also taking action. A spokesman said Monday the EU would bar imports from companies implicated in the scandal. The investigation involves industry giants JBS and BRF. While both companies have denied accusations, their share prices have plummeted since the investigation was announced. The meat industry is big business for Latin America's largest economy, with exports generating $12 billion annually. Brazil is the world's top exporter of both chicken and beef. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Neela Uni.
Philippine House Speaker Pantaleon Alvarez may file an impeachment case against Vice President Leni Robredo. Alvarez said March 17th he is studying the possibility of impeaching Robredo on the grounds of, quote, betrayal of public trust, according to Rappler. Alvarez was referring to Robredo's comments on a video she sent to the United Nations, saying Filipinos are feeling hopeless and helpless amid the Philippines' war on drugs. Solicitor General Jose Calida tweeted, quote, in the event that Alvarez will initiate the impeachment of the VP, my office will gladly lend its legal services to such endeavor. Calida also accused Robredo of destabilizing the current administration. Robredo's camp, meanwhile, says they are not worried about the impeachment threat. Robredo's spokesperson Georgina Hernandez said the VP's comments were based on facts and accounts of the families of victims of extrajudicial killings. Hernandez also said they believe Philippine lawmakers, quote, will side with the truth. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Kimberly Caldwell. Russia questioned Israel's ambassador about attacks on Syria. The Russian Foreign Ministry summoned Ambassador Gary Koren Friday, March 17th, to explain airstrikes in Syria, according to the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister. Russia supports the Syrian Assad regime. Israeli planes reportedly attacked targets near Palmyra Friday morning, destroying arms provided to the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah. Israeli Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman objects to Syria's support of Hezbollah, according to U.S. News and World Report. Syria fired anti-aircraft missiles at the planes as they returned from the mission. On Sunday, Lieberman threatened to destroy Syria's air defenses if the country attacked Israeli planes again. Israel was also blamed for a drone strike on Sunday near the southwest Syrian town of Koneitra, according to The Guardian. The attack reportedly killed a man described as a leader in the pro-Assad Homeland Defense Forces militia. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Kimberly Caldwell.
On Monday, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials said that the Travis County Sheriff's Office, located in Texas Capital County, has released 142 illegal immigrants for whom immigration officials had issued detainers in a single week. Officials reported that 206 criminally charged illegal immigrants were released from the custody of jails after an immigration detainer had been issued. Of those, 142 came from Travis County Sheriff Hernandez Jail. Over the weekend, Governor Abbott had put pressure on the Texas House of Representatives to pass a bill outlawing sanctuary jurisdictions in the state.
Smog may linger over China, in part because the ice caps are melting. A study published March 15th in Science Advances links China's haze pollution to climate change. Researchers say smog over parts of eastern China in 2013 lasted longer because of melting sea ice and increased snowfall in Siberia. They say melting Arctic ice and heavy Siberian snowfall in 2012 changed winter wind patterns and led to stagnant air over eastern China. Normally, strong winter winds blow through the region, clearing the air of some of the pollution. But according to the BBC, the 2013 pollution stuck around for nearly a month. Researchers say about 70% of China's 74 major cities exceeded the daily air quality standard for very fine particulate matter in that time. They say similar events will likely occur as Arctic ice continues to shrink due to climate change. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Kimberly Caldwell.
Stephen Hawking has never been a fan of President Donald Trump. Last year, Hawking confessed to being bemused by Trump's rise and called him a demagogue who seems to appeal to the lowest common denominator. Website CNET reports that this week, however, the renowned British physicist went even further in suggesting that America is heading in a troubling direction. In a recent appearance on Good Morning Britain, Hawking shared that he thinks that Trump was elected by people who felt disenfranchised by the governing elite in a revolt against globalization. He also insisted that climate change is a central issue and one that Trump's administration is ignoring.
Climate change may shrink more than just our polar ice caps. A new study warns that as our planet heats up, some animals may get smaller. Researchers at the University of New Hampshire say it's happened before, more than once in fact. They published their findings March 15th in the journal Science Advances. About 53 million years ago, researchers say a type of early horse decreased in size from 17 pounds to just under 15 pounds. Earlier studies suggest another ancient horse shrank even more 2 million years earlier during a more dramatic warming event. This could mean shrinking patterns depend on how extreme the warming event is. Study author Abigail D'Ambrosia said the dwarfing of some mammals may be the result of fewer available nutrients or a way of coping to lower body heat. She added, quote, "This suggests that dwarfing will be a likely natural response of some mammals to future global warming." For Newsbeat Social, I'm Kimberly Caldwell.
Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world, according to a new study. The Pew Research study estimates that worldwide, the Muslim population will increase 73% by 2050. Meanwhile, Christians will increase by 35% and Hindus by 34% in the same period. Pew estimates that as of 2010, Muslims numbered 1.6 billion, or 23% of the world population. The study projects Islam will surpass Christianity as the world's largest religion by the end of the century. Other projections include 10% of all Europeans being Muslim and India replacing Indonesia as the country with the largest number of Muslims, both by 2050. Growth in the U.S. will be more modest, with Muslims going from 1% of the population in 2015 to 2.1% in 2050. The study cites reproduction as the main reason for the increase, with Muslim women having more children on average than non-Muslims. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Matt Paul.
Lawyers for a group of teenagers suing the U.S. government in a climate change case have asked the government and the oil industry's leading trade group to turn over emails sent and received by U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson using an alias address while he was running ExxonMobil. One of the lawyers said it was possible that Tillerson was using the email address to communicate with people in government on issues related to climate and energy policy. Tillerson left ExxonMobil Corp., where he had been chief executive and chairman, in December, and also stepped down then as chairman of industry trade group the American Petroleum Institute. New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman's office, which is probing whether Exxon misled shareholders and the public about climate change, wrote to a judge last week accusing the company of not previously disclosing the Alias and Tillerson's communications through it. The teenager's case, filed in federal court in Oregon, seeks to prove government officials and oil industry leaders knew about the causes and effects of climate change, but nevertheless carried on with policies that perpetuated it, violating Americans' constitutional right to live in a habitable climate. The federal government has argued in court filings that there is no support for the claim that Americans are constitutionally entitled to a protected climate, while the API has said climate science is not firmly established enough to support the teenager's case.
At a campaign-style rally on Monday night, President Trump attempted to press Congress to pass his Obamacare repeal bill. Republicans, shepherded by House Speaker Paul Ryan, have struggled to secure enough support for the vote planned on Thursday. Trump told the crowd that he was now open to changing the bill, but wanted to pass some kind of repeal of the Affordable Care Act by Thursday. Trump made no mention of FBI Director James Comey's testimony, which contradicted allegations about former President Barack Obama supposedly wiretapping him during the election.
According to a new poll, the fact that Donald Trump is undeniably the nation's 45th president doesn't sit easily with young Americans. They are the nation's increasingly diverse electorate of the future. The Gen Forward poll found 57% of young adults see Trump's presidency as illegitimate. The tally includes about 3/4 of blacks and large majorities of Latinos and Asians. Gen Forward is a poll of adults age 18 to 30. It is conducted by the Black Youth Project at the University of Chicago with the Associated Press, NORC Center for Public Affairs Research. A slim majority of young whites in the poll, 53%, consider Trump a legitimate president. According to the survey, among that group, 55% disapprove of the job he's doing.
YouTube is working on ways to filter out offensive content, but some bloggers have noticed that one of its latest tactics has created a serious feeling of censorship toward the LGBTQ+ community. The platform's restricted mode has been notably blocking and filtering out content from LGBTQ creators, which is confusing considering the feature is only designed to use community flagging, age restrictions, and other signals to identify and filter out potentially inappropriate content. Tyler Oakley, who is one of YouTube's biggest stars, recently became aware that one of his newest videos describing LGBTQ people he admired was blocked under the restricted mode. And he is definitely not alone. Other YouTubers are expressing concern about their blocked videos as well. According to Tyler and other YouTube bloggers, this feature is not only harmful, but it sends the wrong message. There's nothing inappropriate or offensive about simply being who you are, and YouTube has always been an outlet for that necessary self-expression.
In the impoverished city of Flint, 57% of nearly 100,000 residents are African American, with little, if any, trust at all in the federal government's ability or desire to serve and protect their basic need for water. Despite being awarded funding last week from the U.S. government, who made good on a promise of $100 million to help restore water infrastructure needs. CBS News Online reports that an estimated $106 million to $108 million is needed to finish replacing the 18,000 to 20,000 service lines. Progress is slow, and residents are not overly confident that things will move any faster to repair service lines that leached lead into homes and businesses.
Kellyanne Conway is once again making headlines. The controversial counselor to the president, in a recent interview in New York Magazine, admits that she has helped at least one friend pay for an abortion. In the revealing interview, Conway offers her sympathies towards a woman making her own decision to terminate a pregnancy, and also gave an inside look to her past experiences, saying, "Do I know anybody who ever got an abortion?" She asks, "Well, of course I do. I've driven them there. I've helped pay." Conway went on to say, "You know, when you're young, you're thinking about the person, not the issue." She continued, "We were younger and I was focused on her, not on the larger public policy." Despite her past experiences, Conway is clear on her current position, that she does not support the liberal position, freedom and accessibility of an abortion for anyone, anytime, anywhere.